Hello and Namaskar. I'm Avinav Upadhyay. Israel has completed the first phase of its military campaign to capture Gaza City and now has begun the second phase. In the endless Israel-Palestine conflict, the UN Security Council has refused to pass a resolution on Gaza. This conflict is no longer limited to a territorial dispute now. It deeply affects global politics, strategic rivalries, and human rights. Palestine has repeatedly appealed to the international community for intervention, but the political silence of powerful nations is hard to understand. There is no doubt the war never provides a solution, nor can violence ever be a permanent remedy to any problem. The Israel Palestine conflict has always been framed as a religious or territorial battle, but at its heart, it is a complex struggle woven from threads of ethnicity, culture, history, and politics. Simplistic labels rarely do justice to the layers of this conflict. Not all Middle Eastern populations are Arabs. Arabs and Jews, in fact, share roots. Biblical references and modern DNA studies point to their kinship. Even among Palestinians, while most speak Arabic, not all are ethnically Arab. This makes the conflict less about simple land dispute and more about overlapping identities, religion, culture, and ethnicity fed into it, creating a knot that resists untangling. Iran's support for Palestinians is pretty tied to shared Persian roots among segments of Palestinian population, while many Arab states remain reluctant to champion the Palestinian cause for a variety of political and strategic reasons. It is therefore more accurate to view this as a regional conflict, not a global religious one. The right to determine its future belongs primarily to those directly involved: Jews, Arabs, and Palestinians. The one state solution envisions a single country stretching from the Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea, encompassing Israel, the Western Bank, and Gaza. Its supporters argue that population and territories are too interwoven for a clean division. Yet, this proposal carries serious risks. Many Israelis fear it would erase the Jewish character of Israel. If Palestinians received full citizenship, Jews would become a minority, undermining the very idea of Israel as a Jewish homeland. Zionism, after all, is not at all a political ideology but also a cultural and religious dream, the creation of a Jewish state where Jews can live freely and securely. A binational state would run counter to that division. Practical concerns remain as well. After decades of war, can two deeply divided people coexist peacefully under one flag? Could citizenship alone erase decades of mistrust and trauma? Supporters of one state model sees it as a realistic in long run, but even they acknowledge the dangers of future civil war or uprisings. The two-state solution. The two-state solution, long favored by the international community, envisions a independent state of Palestine alongside Israel. On the surface, this appears neat and just, but the details are riddled with the complications. Where exactly would the borders be drawn? Who would control Jerusalem, a city sacred to both peoples? What happens to Jewish settlement in the West Bank? How would the issue of Palestinian refugees be resolved? And even if these hurdles were overcome, the two state solution may not ensure peace. History offers sobering parallels. When the British left India in 1947, the two state solution produced India and Pakistan. Rather than lasting peace, the result was partition, communal violence, proxy wars, and decades of hostility. Cyprus, Kashmir, and other post colonial borders tell similar stories. If Israel and Palestine are divided into two states, the risk is that they will minor India and Pakistan, neighbors locked in perpetual mistrust, each dissatisfied with the other's progress, engaging in wars and proxy conflicts. A third approach to it is sometimes called autonomy plus or state minus, offers Palestinians limited self rule. They would run schools, local services, and elections, but Israel would retain control over borders, foreign policy, and security. Some Israeli leaders see this as a practical. Palestinians largely reject it as insufficient, arguing that it offers autonomy with sovereignty. Variations of this approach already exist in the world in Kashmir, Kurdistan, Crimea, and Chechnya. Such arrangements may appear workable on paper, but they often breed resentment and periodic unrest, as people living under them struggle with the gap between symbolic autonomy and real independence. What complicates every proposal is not just history, but culture. Western powers, with their emphasis on individual rights, often suggest solutions grounded in liberal democracy and individualism. But societies in the Middle East, like many others, remain deeply tribal and collectivist. Loyalty to community, religion, and shared history often outweighs personal identity. This difference matters. Western style solutions like a neat two state divisions assume a level of individualism that is not yet fully embedded in these societies. In tribal context, collective grievances and historical wounds persist far longer than in individualistic societies. Peace cannot be imposed by models that ignore cultural realities. The British withdrawal from colonies in 20th century left behind unresolved disputes that still smolders, that still hurts, that still creates unrest. India Pakistan over partition and Kashmir, Pakistan Afghanistan over Durand Line, Turkey Greece over Cyprus, Malaysia Philippines over Sabah, India China over the McMahon Line, Myanmar's Rakhine issue. Each shows the danger of rushed or imposed solutions. Border drawn without cultural reconciliation only show future wars. The two state solution sounds fair but risks producing a permanent Cold War between Israel and Palestine with proxy conflicts echoing the India Pakistan dynamic. The one state solution may be more practical over generations, especially if equal rights are guaranteed. Yet, it undermines Zionism and could trigger civil conflict. The autonomy plus model provides short term stability but postpones deeper questions of sovereignty and justice. But to be very honest and clear, none of these approach is free of problems. There are options to choose. Choose between imperfect options. There is no perfect solution actually. The Israel Palestine conflict is too deeply rooted in history, identity, and culture to be resolved by maps alone. Peace will depend not only on political deal, but on whether both peoples can evolve beyond their tribal loyalties towards a shared vision of coexistence and humanity. For now, the two-state solution look increasingly unrealistic. The one-state solution too threatening to Israel's identity and autonomy plus too weak to satisfy Palestinian aspirations. Yet, of the three, a carefully negotiated one-state solution with equal rights may offer the best hope in the long run, provided states can overcome fears of domination and reconsider the true purpose of civilization, peace, dignity, and coexistence. At the international level, the path to resolution must be found through dialogue and negotiation rather than fighting. The mathematics of violence and conflict always remains entangled in global benefits, strategic interest, and political equations. Those who participate in wars often try to glorify themselves with the title of champions of peace. In the long Israel Palestine struggle, the question is not about who is more at fault, but rather that wars distract humanity from the true purpose of civilization. Even the world's most powerful democratic force, the United States, keeps changing its strategy based on political equations or dangers, pressures of international politics. This, too, is thought provoking. The world must understand that justice is not the exclusive privilege of powerful nations. To achieve peace and progress, multilateral cooperations must also be strengthened. War and resistance cannot provide permanent solutions. History bears witness that wars have only led to more violence, atrocities, inhuman acts, and destruction. By the way, what do you think about it? Let me know in the comments. Because country like India, and for the countries like India, you see, can suggest paths where justice is not restricted to thinking of a powerful idea alone. India's tradition has been to resolve conflicts through dialogue and compromise, but America's policy on Israel is raising caution over democratic ideals. In today's time, wars takes us away from civilization itself. As long as powerful nations continue to define justice and injustice based on their own interests and political strategies, a permanent solution to this crisis will never be found. Thank you.